Let's talk all about AI in business. It's hosted by Brent Muller. Welcome to the Future Proof Podcast.
Hi, and welcome to the latest episode of Future Proof, the podcast where we're decoding how leaders, founders, and execs are reshaping the business landscape using AI, data, and automation. So if you're looking to future-proof your business, you're definitely in the right place. Before we jump into today's episode, as always, there's links in the show notes for a half hour to book with us at Deploy. If you just want to figure out where AI fits into your business, we're happy to point you in the right direction. No pitch. We're always here to help. Anyway, let's jump into today's episode. I am joined today by Diane Moura from ZenChange. Diane, thank you for spending time with us.
Great to be here.
Awesome. All right. So we always start leaders' journey. So let's just jump right in. Talk to us about your background. I know you have a very similar one to mine in starting in the corporate consulting world. But yeah, kind of tell the audience about your background leading up to ZenChange.
Sure. We both paid our dues in corporate. I spent a couple of decades working in corporate. I've consulted with 30 of the Fortune 500, worked all over the world. Multiple languages, multiple cultures. I had the good fortune of being able to be in a couple of boardrooms and see how that operated. So I've had the ability to see things work at scale. And that I found really helpful to my business. I was traveling a lot. I was, on a plane every single week, and that does get old after a while. I also kind of had that entrepreneurial itch. So I really wanted to start my own things. Like a lot of founders, it started out as me, and then, me and a guy, and then me and more people. And so we've scaled that way. And so I have a full service agency. We focus on regulated industries and trade. So in particular, we do a lot of work with legal and healthcare, and then a lot of local businesses as well. And I'm also a fractional CMO for certain strategic clients. So, fancy word for part-time, but
yeah,
I help them with their marketing strategy and either lead their team or kind of a blended combination of their team with some, supplementing with the folks in my agency, or sometimes we'll just be their entire outsourced marketing department and plug right in.
That's awesome. That is awesome. So, you started ZenChange and you've just kind of grown it over the last bunch of years. Talk to us about some of the things that you've seen in the industries that you serve and kind of how the industry in general, right, from a marketing perspective is changing.
Well, one thing that I think has been fairly consistent, at least when you're looking at regulated industries specifically, is the importance of making sure that you're careful with what you say in your content, because, you can literally put yourself at risk of major fines if you say the wrong things or if you don't get the right things approved. And even, in the world of healthcare, even just the email address associated with a provider is PHI. So that you can, if you don't treat that carefully or work with an agency that understands how to, then, you could put yourself at risk of a HIPAA violation. And obviously those are kind of a big deal and create some brand damage as well. So those are some of the consistencies, but, obviously AI has really been disrupting pretty much every business. Marketing's been in the crosshairs. I think it's sort of one of the first industries that AI really disrupted. I think initially with content. So a lot of, most of us started kind of playing around with ChatGPT and asking it questions and, isn't this cool? But it's very, very quickly evolved into a really useful tool where, you can train a custom GPT on brand voice and all of that. And then you can, you want to go to the next level and you can have workflows that have a human in the loop. And then the next level, you can have agents. I really feel like that is the strongest disruptor right now. And I know, we were talking the other day that we've been around since the internet. And so that was clearly the disruptor in its day and turned businesses upside down. And there was all sorts of talk about what the implications would be.
Biggest disruptor in our lifetime, right?
Absolutely. I mean, it's like it's our industrial revolution, basically. But this is happening a lot faster. And I think if leaders are not, really paying attention, they're going to very quickly get outpaced by their competitors. And, there's a lot of talk that we are probably over the next couple of years going to see, even larger, there are companies that are being launched that are, a couple people and a bunch of agents.
Yep.
But we're going to see the first unicorn exit with probably a founder and a bunch of agents. And that's, if you're running a team of hundreds of people right now, thousands of people, you really need to be thinking about that. Who's coming in behind you, because, obviously the price point, in all likelihood, that they're going to be able to charge for their services is going to be significantly less than having an entire infrastructure underneath you.
Well, and to piggyback on what you said, for those watching and paying attention to what Diane's saying, I'll give you an example, right? This is why product-led growth is going to be the next frontier. And if you look at something like a Cursor is, I believe, 100 employees, and they just hit 5 million in ARR, 500 million. Think about that, right? And to your point, someone's going to do that with under 10 people, right? Yeah. Because that is the power of AI. And I think if you're a larger organization with a big staff, you have to start to reimagine how your departments work based on how you can leverage AI and start to streamline change and basically fundamentally disrupt each of the departments within your org so you can take advantage of this, right? It's not about, like we were talking before, it's not about AI replacing people. It's AI replacing mundane and monotonous things that drag people down. So you can have your good employees 5 to 10 to 20x their productivity if they have this co-pilot mentality with AI next to them. And I think that's kind of where you're going.
Yeah, which ultimately means, I think we're all kidding ourselves if we think AI is not going to replace people. It's going.
Oh, it is.
Take, just like, we could say that the assembly line took jobs. Yes, it did. Right. And, every time there's a new form of technology, automation, it does take jobs, and then it creates other jobs. And that's kind of the exciting thing as well, is that what are we all going to be able to do with AI? We're already seeing. So, if you're just at the level of, you've got a few custom GPTs. I mean, we use a number of custom GPTs in our agency, and we name them with people's names, and we train them to do specific things, because just like your team can't, a single AI is just, one agent or one GPT is going to get very confused if you try to get it to do everything. But if you want one that is just going to, analyze your financials, then train it to do that. And if you want one that is just going to write a certain kind of content, then just train it to do that. But your point about the co-pilot mentality, not necessarily Microsoft, but that whole co-pilot mentality.
We call them digital coworkers.
I mean, I think that's absolutely right, because, right now we still need a human in the loop for a lot of what AI does. Now, you and I are probably going to talk 6 months from now, and maybe we'll be singing a different tune at that time. But right now, AI still needs some oversight. It needs, you need to give it a marketing perspective. It needs brand direction. You need to be really specific. You need to train it. We have some workflows, AI-enabled workflows that we've created in our company. And because we were looking, I think I was mentioning to you that we have an AI tools task force, which I think I would encourage most organizations to do, where our team is constantly looking at, what's new, what's coming out. They're testing different things. Oh, we're going to ditch this one. We're going to try this one instead.
Yeah.
But some of the tools that were coming out, I found they weren't really rocket science. And so there's an interesting workflow tool that we've been playing around with, where we can actually kind of code up little instructions that would go out to a GPT, and you can select which one depending on, whatever it is you're doing, because the different LLMs are obviously each one, like your team members, they all have their own strengths, but there might be something where you want the human to interact. So I'll take a really super simple example. So let's say you want to write a blog or an article. So we have a workflow that will first ask the writer for direction. I want to know the keywords. I want to know the theme. I want to know, give me the angle, all of that. And then the first step that it does is it's going to go and create a bunch of subject lines. And it's using that based on the best practices for subject line creation that we've already taught it. And so now it'll come back, and the writer then has the latitude to say, either I like this one or I kind of like a combination of this one or that one, or maybe I want something different. And the writer is then going to feed it back and say, I'm choosing this subject line. It says, thank you very much. And then it comes back and it'll write the article. But that's not enough because it's going to possibly sound a little bot-like, right? I mean, I'm sure you've all seen on social media, the list of, the different words that AI tends to come out with. And it kind of reminds me of having spent so many years in consulting that people used to joke about the kind of, we'd use leverage and all sorts of consulting speak words. And so
Yes.
AI kind of does that. So you got to clean it up and you have to make sure that, sources are cited and it's not hallucinating and all of that. So to clean up the language, but then you also have to add something original and interesting because you are at the end of the day writing for a human to make it interesting, and you're not just writing for the machine. I think you need to kind of organize your content for the machine, but write for the human. So adding that personal context of, the examples, the lessons learned, the different things that you would use to personalize an article, then you're going to have that. You could get it to, if you wanted to spit out some of the meta, you can ask it to do that and then still tweak it, but you still need that human oversight. So it really does become like your digital sidekick, as you say.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And that's a really good view into the next 6, 9, 12 months for sure. What are the biggest shifts that you foresee in the industry in general? Like you said, we were talking before, you can't look past 18 months. It's just moving too fast. It's evolving too fast. The tools cohort or committee is a great idea because so many organizations right now, Diane, are siloed and people are playing with different things. And there's really lack of governance and coordination, right? Again, another consulting word, but yeah, for sure. So, but a lot of this stuff, as the models evolve, are going to incorporate this functionality that a lot of the tools that you said that are not rocket science, they're just going to be rolled in. I'm already seeing it between Claude and ChatGPT and Grok. So but what do you see the industry down the road in the next 18 months? What are the biggest challenges, opportunities, shifts that you see?
Well, one of them, and you don't even have to go 18 months down the road, you can basically look at now, is how your brand is getting found. So, there was a recent study published by SparkToro, I think it was, that over half of searches now end in 0 clicks. So think about that for a moment. Over half.
That's insane.
So that means that people are embracing the LLMs for one, but don't forget Google. So Google, the first thing when you enter most questions in search, it comes back with that little AI overview. And it's pulled that AI overview from multiple sources. Sometimes it cites them, sometimes it doesn't. So if I ask a question and that AI overview gives me the answer, thank you very much. I don't need to go anywhere else. And it'll also prompt me, because it wants me to go and play with Gemini. Do you want to ask another question? And sure, I do. And now I'm going to ask the question. And
it's training us to use it.
It's training us to interact, and so much more convenient. I mean, remember how we used to have to I sound like I'm talking about way in the past, like a few months ago, when we used to have to scroll through multiple pages sometimes to find what you needed. And the whole purpose of SEO was you want to show up on top because you're going to get all the clicks. Well, or maybe you're going to get the rich snippet and you're going to get all the clicks, and that now I get all the traffic. Isn't that great? So you're still, SEO is still important because you're still getting traffic, but how are you going to be found so that, one, you're going to be ideally referenced in that AI overview. And, now if I'm also asking questions in name your LLM of choice, Perplexity or Claude or Gemini or ChatGPT, they're all kind of, the way that they're pulling in their data, what they're sharing is different. So now for SEO, I need to think about how am I optimizing for AI snippets,
5 or 7 different models, right?
LLMs, and let's not forget, and this is, part of it's a generational thing, but we're all doing it, but especially, you're seeing this in some of the younger generations. Search is starting on YouTube. Search is starting on social media. So are you there? Are you compelling? Are you recording videos? Like all these things that need to come into your strategy. So, that I think is a really significant shift that a lot of brands are seeing right now and is going to continue to increase over the next 18 months.
And you know what's interesting about that is the impact across different industries. If you really think about, which is a massive statement that if half of all search does not, it leads to zero clicks, right? So your whole strategy around paid Google ads, around SEO, if you're an e-commerce store now, you have to shift some of your thinking to how do I get my brand, like to your point, how do I get my brand out there in a different and more engaging way? One of the things I heard, again, not to shift into e-commerce because it's not somewhere we focus, but I was talking to someone on a podcast a few months ago, and they said that I think 33%, 35% of all selling in the Asia markets happens on live selling, where it's live stream selling, almost like QVC on social media, right? Think about that. And that, that's coming here.
Too. I mean, you go on, it's right on the homepage on Amazon. It'll be somebody trying something on, demonstrating a product. It's like that's how
you see the shift happening, right?
Of other human, we want to see, like, I know when my daughter looks to buy something from Amazon, she, for me, I look at it and I'm like, okay, and it's got some good reviews. She's like, no, click on the reviews. I want to see the pictures. I want to see the pictures from the reviews because I know that's that UGC, that user generated content, which is really pervasive and so important to brands. Particularly like it's table stakes in e-commerce. Clearly. And if you look at how is AI going to continue to enable that? Well, I'm sure you probably saw the last the Google, when they did the big presentation on stage and they're talking about, here's everything that's coming. You're going to be able to, and it's already enabled for some people, but you basically, you'll ask you can kind of shop, interact with Gemini to shop. And then it'll just go take you to the product. So it better be your product at your store that is the one that it's taking you to. Otherwise, you haven't even had the opportunity to get in front of that potential customer.
Right. Again, I think this is going to shift a lot of things because again, right now that's a black box, right? If you're an advertiser, right, or a marketer, you're like, how do I make sure I show up in that AI pull, right? Because again, it's a black box of an algorithm or a LLM model that we're not sure how it works and how you get up there, and it's going to drive marketers nuts.
It is, but in the meantime, it almost really reinforces the need for paid because while everyone is trying to, and I mean, there is definite data as to where the LLMs pull from,
right,
when they're referencing links. So, you can certainly optimize for that. But, if you want to show up today or you want to start replacing maybe some of those keywords that you used to be able to get organically, I mean, you're just going to have to pay. And whether it's running an AdWords campaign or, if you're boosting your videos on YouTube or you're boosting posts on social, I mean, I think making sure that brands set aside a budget for pay to play. I think, I remember like back in the day when, you used to be able to get great traction on Facebook organically. And then of course they shifted the algorithm and everybody knew, that you could have all these followers. They are not seeing your content. You're going to have to boost it. You're going to have to run campaigns, and everybody knew that's just the way it was. And I mean, that's how Google is, in a lot of cases now as well. I mean, I think you can still, if you're a local business, you can still get some good traction with local SEO. So I think that's still an opportunity. But even then, it depends. Google's giving you different search results based on, whether am I searching on mobile? What did I look for last time? What does it know about me? I mean, it's really
getting smarter
to interact. So like even the order of the panels that it's displaying in the search results is changing based on, like you and I could do the same search and we're going to get very different results.
Yeah. It'll be interesting to see if there's an AIEO instead of SEO, going forward. But I do think that, you're right. There's this is going to shift a lot of things. So if I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, I'm a SaaS company or I got to get my brand out there. What's your advice going forward? Because again, we're probably making some founders that are watching this go, I didn't think of that, right? Oh crap, right? I'm using yesterday's playbook and yesterday's strategy. What do I got to do? Yeah. So Diane, what's your recommendation to your clients and kind of people?
Well, I mean, at least to reassure some of your your listeners here. One thing that hasn't changed is the importance of your brand story. And that's really key because that still sets you apart. And however you get the eyeballs on your brand, you still have to convert them. And it's the story that's going to convert them. Something has to set you apart and make you buzzworthy, if you will. So getting that story right is really, really important. And then telling that story across, like really think about, put yourself in the shoes of where is my target audience now? Are they on Reddit? Are they on Substack? Are they, so don't just think about the traditional channels.
Oh yeah, we have spread the audiences. There are a zillion places they can be now.
And you can't be in every place, but you need to be in the places where your target audience is hanging out, and you need to be visible there, and you need to be authentic. So,
that's key.
These are things that are, that's consistent. That has not, so, take a deep breath. That part has not changed. I think the part that's changed is, where you need to be, the type of content you need to be creating. So obviously, we've been saying for years now, video, video, video. Well, the LLMs also love video. So now you have one more reason or one less excuse to not be recording videos. And if you are a founder or CEO, you must have a personal brand and you must be out there because again, back to that authenticity, people want to know who they're buying from. They want to connect with, with actual humans. So we talked about, yes, there's ways you can run ads. There are all sorts of things you could do to optimize for SEO, but you need that story. You need that personal brand. You need to be out there and actually touching people, even if it's going to be digitally. So you need to be engaging on the socials, really double down on your LinkedIn. It's a great opportunity to be able to make connections and to get found and really build that YouTube channel because think of it, Google obviously owns YouTube and we're seeing Gemini is favoring its own properties, right? In
absolutely,
results.
It's natural.
So, you have to think of the motivation of these platforms. They want you spending more time on them. And if you're Google, you're probably seeing maybe, a lot of concerns, right? With people going, oh, is SEO dead? Well, SEO is not dead. It's just, it's changed. It's changing a lot. So you can't use the same old tactics.
Yeah. Well, and one of the things that I have heard, right, because again, as AI, anybody that's written a blog article or an email or just anything content wise, how quickly you can create it. And, the bad black hat SEO guys out there are going to create billions and billions of just AI generated content. But the authenticity is what's going to win the day, right? For brands, because, as smart as they think they are, right? The platforms like Google are very smart too, and they can detect that where it's, it's not, to your point about having the human in the loop and having the human add to that content. I think that you will see that be rewarded. And to your point about video, same thing. You're going to have the algorithms and just be able to detect the ones that were created, right? And versus the ones that were fake.
You could say it's like, oh, is it because the bot is knowing that a bot created this? Yes, okay, that's part of it. But, back to that authenticity theme, the LLMs recognize and Google recognizes good content because, there's this certain, you can kind of tell a lot of the times when something is completely written by an LLM, but really good content that is long form, that is organized, that has very clear bullet points, that answers a question, that has a table of contents, that is a good long form reference piece that would be valuable to humans. Well, Google's going to recognize that as well and is going to favor that. So, it's that adding that originality and really kind of thinking about your audience and writing for that audience, because, you can put out 100,000 blogs on your website and there's all sorts of platforms that'll do that and they'll just spit it out and automatically post them. But at the end of the day, it's about engagement because Google is rewarding engagement because of the fact that there's this plethora of junk content out there.
Totally agreed. All right. So last question, tell me what the most exciting thing as you look down the next year or 6 months, what's the most exciting development that you think that AI will help with or help your clients with?
Well, I'm super excited about agentic AI. So AI agents, like actual independent agents. Like if you think about all the things that you do that are a pain in the neck, right, that are time consuming, but you can't quite turn it over to AI yet because there's too many instructions. So, even just simple things like your AI going through your inbox and like, not only just organizing things, but just, you walk in at the beginning of the day and it's like, oh, good morning, Deanne. Here's the top 3 things you need to look at today. Here's this client, you need to reach out to them. Here's this opportunity, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I found this really interesting article for you that you might want to read. And, oh, here's a really cool video. And I think back to, I'm going to be dating myself here, but for those of us who remember the Jetsons, and I think of Rosie the robot, my dream was always, I wanted my own Rosie the robot.
Absolutely.
That was fantastic. Take that concept and now you're going to incorporate it into robotics. And I just find that intersection, and maybe I'm a little bit biased because my daughter's about to be a robotics engineer. So I just find that whole field incredibly cool. But just imagine the intersection of AI and robotics and what that's going to be able to allow us to do. And I just think it's fantastic.
Yeah, it's funny. I mean, I think it was Elon that said, within the next 10 years, everyone's going to have a $30,000 robot instead of a car in your house to do a bunch of stuff. And I'm like, which is Rosie the robot, right? I don't know if it's going to happen in that time frame. I could see it happening in that time frame, but that's amazing, right? Because it's all the stuff that it could free you up that we hate to do today. So,
exactly.
We'll see. Very, very exciting. I'm with you.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for spending some time with us today, for sharing your insights. This has been phenomenal. I can't wait to get this out because we talk a lot about the different problems that AI solves. But when we talk about brand, I think it is one of the most overlooked and underappreciated thing. And I think that this podcast is highlighting just how important it is going forward.
100%. Oh, it's been a great conversation. I've enjoyed it.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much again. And we will be keeping up, and we might do that 6-month check-in and we'll see how far along we are.
I think we should. And we should probably have clips from this, and you and I can be looking at the clips and realize how wrong that we are today.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. We're definitely going to do that. As a matter of fact, I'm going to tell my team that we're going to do that in 6 months and just see where we're at. I think that's a really good idea to check in. So thanks again. And we just loved having you here. And I think we're going to really appreciate, our audience really going to appreciate this podcast. So thank you.
Pleasure.
Awesome. Well, hey guys, that wraps up this episode of Future Proof. And it's exactly why you tune in. Definitely something new every day for you to think about where, whether you're getting board pressure, whether you're getting organizational, internal pressure to fix processes. This is what we do, is we educate you on by leaders like Diane, in different areas about how to solve these problems and where to start. So like I said, if you need help, we're here to help. And thank you for listening, and we'll see you on tomorrow's episode. Thank you, guys.
If you're ready to embrace change and lead with innovation, be sure to subscribe and never miss an episode. Thanks for tuning in to the Future Proof Podcast.